Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I have something very special for you guys. I bought 3 copies of the Dark World Structure Deck, and we're going to crack these open and see what's inside, read some of the new cards, and then we are going to be building a 3-time structure deck for budget players. It's just about, because they increased the price to about $12 United States money, then it's probably going to be closer to like $36 to $40 for a budget build using just 3 structure decks. With that being said, let's go ahead and read off some of these cards. Alright, so let's go ahead and open this up and see what the new cards have in store for us. So of course, starting off with the mat, which looks really cool, and I'd actually like to get a rubber playmat of this. And then, of course, you have all of your, the tips and tricks for the deck. Alright, let's go ahead and open this up and see what the new cards are. Alright, so starting off, of course, we have Rainbow, Overking of Dark World. This card says you can special summon this card from your graveyard by returning 1 level 7 or lower Dark World monster you control to your hand. Then this card says that if this card is discarded by to the graveyard by card effect, you can add 1 level 5 or higher Dark World monster from your deck to your hand, except, of course, Rainbow Overking of Dark World. Then, if this card was discarded from your hand to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower Dark World monster from your deck or graveyard to either field. That is really powerful and one of the better cards that was printed in this set for the support. Continuing on, of course, we have Dark World Puppetry. Dark World Puppetry says target up to 3 cards in any graveyard or graveyard, so you can banish cards from your own graveyard if you want to for some reason. Then you can banish them, then discard 1 Fiend monster. Then during the main phase, except the turn that this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 of your banished Fiend monsters, add it to your hand. So you can use Dark World's Puppetry to be able to banish 1 of your monsters from your graveyard and your opponent's graveyard. Then you can add back on the next turn the card that was banished and be able to recur that card. Now I see why you could do it from either graveyard. Alright, continuing on, we have Dark World Archives. Dark World Archives says, during your main phase, you can discard 1 Dark World monster, and if you do, Dark World monsters you currently control gain attack equal to the level of the discarded monster had in the hand times 100. Once, until the end phase. So practically they just gain by discarding a Dark World, which, of course, the deck wants to be discarded. Continuing on, this has another effect. This is if a monster whose original type is Fiend is discarded from your hand by the effect of a Dark World card or an opponent's card effect, even during the damage step, you can discard 1 card, then draw 2 cards. You can only use each effect once per turn. Pretty good card. I would honestly only run it as a 1 of, or maybe possibly a 2 of, but I don't really see much need for 2 copies. Continuing on, we do have Grapha, King Overlord of Dark World. This card says that when your opponent's monster activates a monster effect or a normal spell or trap, while you have a card or cards in your hand, quick effect, you can activate this effect. The activated effect becomes your opponent discards 1 card. You can only use that effect once per turn. This card also has another effect that says, if this fusion summon card leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, or because of an opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 Grapha Dragon Lord of Dark World that is banished or in your graveyard, which of course you would use as which you have to use as the material, so you're pretty much guaranteed to have it. Continuing on, we do have Dark World Accession. This card says during the main phase, you can fusion summon 1 Fiend fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing the materials mentioned on your field or your graveyard. If fusion summoning a Dark World monster, this way you can also discard monsters as materials. During your main phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand and discard 1 Dark World monster. You can only use each effect once per turn. Really powerful. I don't know how many I'd run. I'd have to definitely look at the deck to see what is important and what is not. But that is definitely a very good card. Continuing on, we do have the best card that was released in the structure deck, in my opinion, Ginta, Gateman of Dark Worlds. This card just says that you can only special summon this card once per turn. However, it does have the effect of you can discard this card to add the Gates of Dark World to your hand. Then this card also has another effect that if this card is banished from the graveyard, while you control a Dark World card, yes, a Dark World card, including Gates of the Dark World, you can special summon this card. So that is pretty much you discard this card, it's a free special summon, and you get Gates of Dark World. Alright, and of course, continuing on, we do have Pearl, Hermit of Dark World. This card has an effect that if this card is discarded by card effect, you can target one Dark World monster in your graveyard except this card, then special summon that card to either field. Then if this card was discarded from your hand by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon to either side of the field one Fiend monster that is banished, or in your hand or graveyard. So that's really good, being able to just be able to summon out two monsters if sent by your opponent's card effect, which of course this deck makes it to where your opponent has to discard your cards. Continuing on, we do have Dark World Punishment. Dark World Punishment just says that when a monster would be normally special summoned, you can negate the summon, and if you do, destroy that monster, then discard one Fiend monster, then you can discard one Fiend monster. Well, you have to discard the Fiend monster, but in this deck, that's actually really powerful. Continuing on, this card says that if a Dark World monster you control will be destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, while this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card instead. You can only use each effect once per turn. Then, of course, just going through real quick with the other cards we got in the deck. We have Rainbow, Overlord of Dark World. We have Lucian's Netherlord of Dark World. Latinum Exarch of Dark World, Gold Warlord of Dark World, Silva Warlord of Dark World, Braun Mad King of Dark World, Beige, really powerful card, probably a 2 of, maybe a 3 of, but this card just says that it can special summon if it was discarded. Brow, Huntsman of Dark World, another really good card saying that if this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect, you can draw one card. Or if it's discarded by an opponent's card effect, you can draw 2 cards. Then we have Scar, Scout of Dark World. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. I'm going to say Khaki, Gorilla of Dark World. Grand Tactician of Dark World. Ceruli, Guru of Dark World. This card is actually also pretty decent, saying that if this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect, special summon this card to your opponent's field and defense position. If this card is special summoned by the effect of a Dark World card, your opponent discards one card. So practically, you just summon this to your opponent's side of the field, then you get to discard one card. Then, of course, we have the 2 normal monsters. Continuing on, we do have some dangers in this. We have Danger Bigfoot, Thunderbird, Mothman, and Tsushinoko. Tsushinoko feels really weird to have as common, but pretty good card. Continuing on, we do have Lilith, Lady of Lament, Fabled Raven, and Absolute King Backjack to help with the trap cards of the deck, which, honestly, these are really good reprints, especially mainly these 2 over this, but we definitely needed a reprint of Backjack. Continuing on, we have, of course, Dark World Dealings, Charge into a Dark World, Gateway to Dark World, Dark World Lightning, Drag Down into the Grave, really good reprint. Card Destruction, also really good card. Moving on to the traps, we have the Forces of Darkness. Target 2 Dark World monsters in your graveyard. Add those cards to your hand. Dark World Brainwashing. This is a new card called Dark Smog, or at least I believe it's new. This is my first time seeing it. This card says once per turn, you can target one monster in your opponent's graveyard. Discard one Fiend monster, and if you do, banish that target. Then, of course, we have Mind Crush. This card used to be really good to be able to get hand knowledge. However, nowadays, your opponent can just say they don't have the card, which is very scummy, and you shouldn't do that, but people do it, so be careful of people cheating, trying to use this card. Continuing on, we have Deck Devastation Virus, one of the most powerful virus cards we have in the game right now. Then we have Paleozoic Dynamiscus, Skill Drain Reprint, Common. I don't know how I feel about the Common, but I guess it's very nice to be able to let people have the card if they didn't have the card at a cheaper price. Then, of course, to wrap up the deck, we have Grapha, Dragon Lord of Dark World, Snow, Unlight of Dark World, and the Gates of Dark World. So that's the structure deck, guys. I really like it. I think that the support is actually really good. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the ×3 deck profile. Alright, so I got my ×3 structure deck built, so let's go ahead and jump on into it. Of course, starting off with one of the best cards in this deck. We do, of course, run 3 copies of Ginta to be able to special summon itself and get yourself the Gates of the Dark World. I do run 3 copies of Rainbow because as you guys saw in the earlier part of the video, that card is way too good not to run at 3. Continuing on, we do run 3 copies of Snow, because I didn't really go into what Snow did. It said that if this card is discarded by an opponent's card effect, you can search for any Dark World card, including itself, but honestly, you're probably not really going to go into that to search for itself. Continuing on, we do run 3 copies of Brow, Huntsman of the Dark World, because this card just says if this card is discarded, you get to just draw 1 card, which is really good. Alright, continuing on, we do run 2 copies of Grapha. We do run 2 copies, one for the fusion spell, the other for its own effect. Its effect says that you can switch summon this card from your graveyard by returning 1 Dark World monster you control to your hand, except Grapha. Then, if this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect, you can target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy that card. It also says that then, if this card was discarded from your hand to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can reveal 1 card in your opponent's hand. If that card was a monster, you can special summon that card to your field. Continuing on, we do run 1 copy of Silva. Silva says that if this card is discarded to your graveyard by a card effect, special summon this card. Then, if this card was discarded to your hand by your opponent's card effect, you can place exactly 2 cards from their hand to the bottom of their deck in any order. Continuing on to the one-ofs, we run 1 copy of Pearl. Pearl is really good, being able to just be practically like a Monster Reborn. However, it is not good enough to play at more than 1. Then, of course, we run 1 copy of Ceruli. Ceruli is just there to pretty much, if this card is discarded, special summon it, then to your opponent's side of the field. Then the opponent has to discard a card, which at that point you'd be the opponent, and you get to just discard 1 card. Continuing on to the Danger package, we run 3 copies of Mothman, because Mothman just has the effect of if it's sent to the graveyard, if it's discarded, each player draws 1 card, discards 1 card, and it's just massive consistency for the deck. Personally, I chose to run 1 Tsushinoko, 1 Bigfoot, 1 Thunderbird, mainly so that way we could have different names for the Dangers. However, in the actual build, which I will be doing later on, we're going to be running a whole lot more Dangers, and this lineup will make a lot more sense. So that's it for the monsters. Moving on to the spell cards. So starting off, we do run 2 copies of Gates of Dark World. Gates of Dark World just says all Fiend monsters gain 300 attack and defense, and then once per turn, you can banish 1 Fiend monster from your graveyard, then discard 1 Fiend monster and draw 1 card. This card is, of course, the other part of the Ginta, being able to summon this card out and search this card. Continuing on, we do run only 2 copies of Archives. Archives, I think, is a really good card, however, it should not be played at 3 due to the fact that it is a hard once per turn. I choose to run 2 copies of Dark World's Accession just for the fact of it is searchable by Snow. However, you don't want to just have to rely on Snow to search it. You want to be able to draw into it, and I think 2 would be perfectly fine with that number. Continuing on, of course, we do run 3 copies of Dark World Dealings. Dark World Dealings just says each player draws 1 card, then discards 1 card. Personally, this is just in my opinion, I decided to main 1 copy of Puppetry because it is practically just a DD Crow. However, it does kind of require you to set it or use it on your opponent's turn. And this card can actually be really decent against Tear Elements, in my opinion, being able to just banish our stuff when they're trying to fuse. That's really about it for that. Then to wrap up the spells, we do run one copy of Card Destruction. Card Destruction just says, each player discards their hand, then draws the same number. Yes, they discard their hand. That's exactly what all the monsters in this deck want to do, and they can just be able to pretty much just all activate their effects at once, and it's really powerful. So that's it for the spells. Moving on to the trap cards, we do of course run 3 copies of Punishment. Punishment just is a really good card that I'm really glad we got, just to be able to protect our cards as well as negate the summon or special summon of a monster. And yeah, really powerful. And then to wrap up the deck, we do run 3 copies of Dynamiscus. I was thinking of either running this or Skill Drain. Skill Drain is a really good card, however, in this deck it's kind of a win more card, but it can also set you back a lot if you do not have a way to either out it or just to be able to play through it. So that's it for the main deck. Moving on to, of course, the extra deck. 3 Grapha. That's all we have. I can't wait to do the full build of this deck and show you guys what this deck can do. However, all we have right now is the 3 Grapha Dragon Overlord of Dark World. So, surprisingly, with this deck, we actually do have a full side deck. However, of course, side deck is up to your preference and how you want to play, especially for like tournaments coming up or your locals. It really just depends on what you guys want to do. I decided that I would run a second copy of Bigfoot in the side deck because going second, it does give you ways to destroy opponent's monsters. Then I run 3 copies of Dark World Lightning. Dark World Lightning is just an MST where you have to discard 1 card. That's really all it does. Then we have, of course, Drag Down into the Grave. This card just says, each player reveal their hand and choose 1 card that they... then choose 1 card in their opponent's hand, and then they discard the chosen cards. And then each player draws 1 card. I do run the other 2 copies of Puppetry in the side deck because it is, again, as I said, pretty much just a DD Crow. Then, of course, to wrap it up, we do run 3 copies of Deck Devastation Virus, and we do run our 3 copies of Skill Drain in case we do have to go into that kind of grind game. But yeah, that's about it for the video, guys. Be sure to leave a like, comment down below what you guys think of the deck profile. And with that being said, see ya!